The first thing Cha Inu felt was the wind. Real high-altitude wind. The kind that hits your face with constant cold persistence, as if it wants to make sure you notice it. The kind of wind that exists only at great height. He opened his eyes. Sky. Vast, pale gray, with high cirrus clouds moving quickly. Too quickly for the ground. Inu sat up, and immediately the instinct, ancient and unerring, froze. Because beneath him was stone. Square, about 2 by 2 meters. And nothing else. On 3 sides of the stone there was air. Endless, bluish-gray, going down so far that the bottom could not be seen at all. Only clouds somewhere deep below, and even deeper fog. He was standing on top of a stone pillar. Alone. In the sky. At a height he could not determine, but one sufficient enough that a fall would leave no options. For several seconds, Inu simply sat and breathed. Methodically, deliberately inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4. That was how a climbing coach had taught him 8 years ago. Panic kills before height does. He was a climber. Because for the last 3 years he had only worked, not climbed. But the body remembered. The body was his main asset right now. When his breathing evened out, he looked around carefully. The platform on top was 2 by 2 meters, stone, like everything around. The stone was gray, dense, with thin veins of darker color basalt, perhaps, or something similar. The pillar went down in an even rectangular section. He saw that, leaning carefully over the edge and immediately jerking back. The height was serious. The clouds beneath him were not a metaphor. There were literally clouds floating below him. 2 things lay on the platform. A pickaxe. And himself. The pickaxe was real, heavy, with a wooden handle polished to a shine, as if it had just come from the store. The metal part shone without rust. Inu took it, turned it in his hands. Heavy. Functional. Good steel. He looked at the pickaxe, then at the stone under his feet. Then at the horizon. On the horizon were other pillars. He did not notice them at once. At first he took them for cloud columns. But no. Dark, straight, going down from the clouds and up toward the sky. Pillars. Many. He counted 6, then lost count, because some were farther away and thinner. On some of them something was moving. People. Tiny from here like dots. But moving. Inu stood up carefully, feet wide apart, center of gravity low, and began looking in every direction systematically. North, east, south, west. The nearest pillar was to the northeast. 200 meters, maybe 250. Someone stood on it, a figure, small but distinguishable. Seemed to be looking in his direction too. He waved a hand. After a pause, they waved back. Alive. Inu exhaled, and only then realized he had been holding his breath. The next question arose by itself logically, without panic. How long can one stay here? No food. No water. No shelter. The wind was constant, cold, chilling. At night it would be worse. He looked at the pillar, at the section going down. Then at the pickaxe. Why had they given him a pickaxe? One answer: to break stone. He dropped to one knee at the edge of the platform. Looked at the upper blocks of the pillar where the platform passed into the body of the pillar. Between the platform and the next block below, there was a barely visible crack. Natural or deliberate. Blocks. The pillar consisted of blocks. Inu took the pickaxe, took aim, struck the crack lightly, as a test. The stone responded not with a dull sound, but with a ringing one. Hollow. He struck harder. The crack widened. Another blow. The block shifted slightly, by a millimeter, but it shifted. Inu stopped. Thought. If he broke the blocks under the platform would collapse. That was illogical. So not under the platform. So the body of the pillar below. He could reach it only by climbing down over the edge. He looked at the edge of the platform. Then at the wind, which at that moment seemed to strengthen on purpose. Fine, he said aloud. His voice in the wind sounded unfamiliar, like someone else's. He lay on his stomach, hung over the edge slowly, controlling every movement, feet braced against the opposite edge of the platform for balance. Looked at the body of the pillar directly beneath him. The blocks were even, square, about 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter each. Between them were thin cracks, as if it were masonry without mortar. The top block directly under the platform was within reach. If he held on to the edge and hung down, the pickaxe would reach. Risky. He thought for 10 seconds. He had no alternative. He broke the first block in 7 blows. Lying on his stomach, holding on to the edge of the platform with one hand, fingers white from strain, he struck the top block of the pillar's body with the pickaxe. The wind interfered, threw off his aim, chilled his hand, forced him to squint. On the seventh blow, the block scraped out from the body of the pillar and fell down. Inu watched it. The block fell silently, disappearing into the clouds, and there was no sound of it hitting anything. It simply vanished into the white, very high up. But from the hole the block had left, something else fell out. Not stone, an object. Small, dropping right onto the surface of the platform with a knock. Inu pulled himself back up, lay on his back for several seconds, simply resting and letting his arms recover. Then he picked up the object. Rope. Thin, strong, coiled into a neat bundle. About 15 meters, he estimated by weight. He looked at it, then smiled briefly, without amusement, more with that special feeling that comes when a task begins to take shape. So that's it, he said aloud, again to that usury voice in the wind, and lifted the pickaxe again. By noon, or what he took for noon from the position of the dim patch behind the clouds, Inu had broken 7 blocks. Each time the procedure was the same: lie down, hang over, strike, hold on. But the results were different. Second block boards. 5 wooden boards, falling out in a fan directly onto the platform. Thin, but strong. Inu bent one against his knee. It did not break. Third block, nothing. Just stone, hollow inside. Inu lay over the hole and looked into the darkness of the opening, empty. So not every block contains an item. Fourth, nails. Many, in a small bag of coarse fabric. 300 grams, probably. Fifth, a piece of cloth. Thick, canvas-like. About 1 by 1.5 meters. Sixth, empty again. Seventh, and here Inu stopped. What fell out of the 7th block was not an object. Paper, rolled into a tube, tied with a thin cord. He unrolled it carefully. The wind immediately tried to tear it away. He had to pin it under his knee. The text was written by hand. Small, but legible. You are not the first to end up here. You are not the last. The blocks give what is needed, not what is wanted. Watch your neighbors, but do not trust everyone. At night, do not move. At all. They see movement. There was no signature. Inu read the note 3 times, then carefully folded it, put it into the breast pocket of his jacket. Good thing the jacket was thick, workwear, with zippered pockets. They see movement. He lifted his gaze to the sky. The sky was empty: clouds, grayness, wind. Nothing alive, except the distant dots of people on neighboring pillars. Empty for now. By evening he had rope 15 meters, 5 boards, a bag of nails, 1 piece of canvas, pickaxe, tool, and weapon, if needed. Note: he sat in the center of the platform and looked at these items. Then he began to build. Not a house, a canopy. Just a canopy. 3 boards as walls on 3 sides, the canvas as a roof, nails for fastening. The wind confused him twice. A board fell over the edge. He barely managed to catch it. The third time he caught it at the very edge, dropping to one knee, and for several seconds simply looked down into the clouds with the board in his hands. Do not rush. Height kills the hasty. The coach had said that too. By what he took for twilight, the sky had darkened from gray. The clouds had thickened. The canopy stood crooked, uneven, with one wall that held unreliably. But it stood. Inu climbed inside. Lay on the cold stone. There was nothing for bedding. That was a minus. Pulled the hood of his jacket over his head. Looked through the gap between the canvas and the board at the darkening sky. At night, do not move. At all. He lay motionless and waited. Darkness came quickly, not gradually, but as if someone had turned a rheostat. Gray twilight one moment, then blackness. The stars appeared, many, too many, brighter than he had ever seen from the ground. This was true height, above city light, above pollution, just sky and stars. Beautiful, he noted that honestly, and set it aside. Then he heard it. The sound was low, not exactly a hum, more an undertone, almost below hearing, the kind you feel not with your ears, but with your ribcage. As if very large wings, slow, rhythmic. Once. Pause. Once. Pause. Inu lay absolutely motionless, looked through the gap, and saw it. A silhouette passed over the pillar slowly, low. The wingspan was so enormous that the silhouette blocked out a third of the visible sky for a second. The shape was wrong, neither bird-like nor airplane-like. Something with sharp angles and at the same time smooth movement. As if geometry and biology had been mixed together and something third had come out. Inu did not breathe. The creature passed over the platform and went farther. 30 seconds later again. Another one, or the same one, he could not tell. Again low, again slow, Again, that infrasonic pressure in his sternum. He watched through the gap and counted. In 2 hours, until he lost count, no fewer than 9 such silhouettes passed over the platform. Different sizes, different directions, but all slow, patrolling. They see movement. He did not move until dawn. All night. It was harder than it sounded. His muscles went numb. His back hurt. The cold from the stone penetrated through his jacket. Several times he almost fell asleep, and each time a hand or foot began to slip, he woke from the reflexive motion, froze, listened. But the creatures did not react. So small involuntary movements did not matter to them. Something else mattered: active movement. That was information. Dawn came just as quickly as darkness, the rheostat in reverse. The sky turned gray, then lighter. The clouds returned to their usual appearance. Inu carefully crawled out of the canopy, stood, stretched his arms and legs slowly, in sequence, looked at the horizon. On the northeastern pillar, where the figure had been, something had changed. Something had appeared. Inu squinted. A small structure, something built on top of the pillar. Looks like a canopy too. So over there they had thought the same way. So over there they had survived until morning too. Inu felt something, not joy, but relief. Sharp, physical. On the second day, he broke blocks methodically, not chaotically, systematically. He made a plan on a scrap of cloth he found in the pocket of his jacket, using a sharp stone like a pencil. Diagram of the pillar from above, platform, body, blocks. Marked where he had broken, what he had gotten, what was empty. Logic was making itself known. Random, but not entirely. Useful blocks alternated roughly after 1 or 2 empty ones. Not always, but often enough to suggest a pattern. The second day gave: 8th block empty. 9th hammer. Small, a carpenter's hammer. 10th a can. 1. Stewed vegetables. He opened it with the knife from his pocket, ate them cold, not thinking about taste. His stomach accepted them silently. 11th empty. 12th more boards. For pieces. 13th, and here Inu stopped again. 2 items fell out of the 13th block. That had not happened before, always 1 or 0. 2 was new. First, a hook. Iron, with a hole for rope. Construction type, for fastening. Second, a compass. Inu held the compass in his palm and looked at the needle. North. The needle pointed north confidently. Then he looked at the northeastern pillar, where the person who had also survived until morning was. Then at the compass. Then back at the pillar. Watch your neighbors. The note had said watch. Do not go to them. Do not call to them. Watch. For now. First understand what is nearby. Then decide. But the pickaxe, rope, and hook together suggested an idea. He could try to throw the rope with the hook onto a neighboring pillar. 250 meters was too far for a throw. But if he found intermediate points, other pillars between them, in a chain, it could work. He looked at the horizon. Between his pillar and the northeastern one, about 100 meters away, there was another pillar. Thin, small, not inhabited, it seemed. No person on top. Just a stone pillar. But large enough to catch onto. Throwing a rope with a hook at height was a task with several variables: wind, distance, accuracy. Inu spent an hour practicing. Not with the real rope, with a piece of cloth from the canopy, with a stone tied instead of the hook. He threw it, watched the trajectory, accounted for wind drift. The wind at height was not constant, it changed direction every few minutes. That required waiting for a lull. On the 9th throw, the stone with the rag flew exactly where it needed to the top of the small intermediate pillar. It did not catch, there was nothing for it to catch on, but the trajectory was correct. Good. Now with the real hook. He tied the hook to the rope, not at the end, but 3 meters back, creating a lasso loop. Stood at the edge of the platform. Waited for a lull in the wind. The lull came after 4 minutes. He threw. The rope flew forward in a beautiful parabola, with that special motion that a well-thrown projectile has. The hook described an arc, and dropped beyond the edge of the intermediate pillar. Inu pulled the rope slowly, taking up the slack. Tension. The hook had caught. He pulled harder, it holds. Holds. Inu stood with the taut rope in his hands and felt something cold and businesslike unfolding inside. Not euphoria, just the next step. The rope between the pillars had been stretched, but it was not yet a bridge. You could not walk on it. You could pass something along it, or create the basis for something larger. He thought. Boards. He had 9 boards total. If he placed a board across the rope, tied it on both sides, it would make a swaying little bridge. Not reliable, but with a second rope for hands, it would work. He did not have a second rope. Yet. He took up the pickaxe again. 14th block empty. 15th rope. Again 15 meters. Inu looked at it without a smile, but with the quiet satisfaction of a person who had guessed right. The blocks give what is needed. Someone had known he would need a second rope. Someone had known before he did. He pushed that thought aside not because it was unimportant, but because the task right now was more concrete. The bridge took the rest of the day. 2 ropes between 2 pillars. Boards across the lower one, tied on. The second rope higher, for hands. The distance was about 8 meters between his platform and the intermediate pillar. The decking sagged in an arc inevitably. That was physics. But while moving, if one walked slowly, using both hands for support, it should hold. Should. Inu looked at the bridge from the edge of the platform. The wind swayed the decking slightly, but steadily. He thought about whether he should test it today. It would start getting dark soon. At night, do not move. He decided, no, tomorrow. Put away the pickaxe, climbed into the canopy, lay there and listened to how the wind worked with the bridge, the quiet creak of ropes, the slight movement of boards. The structure held. For now. At night they came again, but this time more. Inu counted the silhouettes through the gap in the canopy. Not 9 more than 20. They circled not chaotically, not randomly. They circled above the pillars. Above all the pillars he could see. Above those where there were people. One of the creatures hovered over his canopy for almost a minute. Simply hung there, wings working slowly, the infrasound pressing on his chest. Inu looked through the gap at its silhouette from below, dark, with sharp edges, without distinguishable details. Like a shadow without a source. Then it went away. He exhaled, and then he heard a scream, distant from one of the other pillars. Once cut off. Silence. Inu lay motionless and stared into the darkness. There were no more screams. But he did not sleep until dawn for the second time in a row. Morning of the 3rd day. Inu came out of the canopy and first of all looked at the northeastern pillar. The structure there was larger than before. The person was clearly working just as actively. Something wooden, with protrusions, looked like the beginning of a proper shelter, not just a canopy. Inu looked at his bridge. The ropes held. The boards were in place. He stood at the edge, gripped the upper rope, took a step. The board under his foot rocked as expected. He had prepared for that. Took a second step, shifting his weight slowly, feeling how the sag changed. His hands held the upper rope tightly. Not for life, for balance. A climber does not hold on for life. He holds on for balance. Third step. Fourth. The bridge swayed in time with the wind, in time with his movement. Clouds and the abyss beneath him. Inu did not look down. A climber looks at the next point of support, not down. 8 meters. He crossed it in 2 minutes. Stood on the intermediate pillar, small, about 1 by 1 meter, barely enough room, and from there looked farther. There were still about 150 meters left to the northeastern pillar. He could see 2 intermediate pillars between them. That would take time. And ropes. He pulled out the pickaxe. The intermediate pillar also consisted of blocks. The first block of the intermediate pillar gave something he did not yet have. A metal canteen with water. Inu held it in his hands, heavy, full, cold, and thought that this was probably the first truly important thing the blocks had given. Ropes and boards for building. Water for life. He drank a third of it immediately. Put the rest away. The second block of the intermediate pillar was empty. The third, another note. Inu unrolled it. Different handwriting, larger, hastier, as if written by another person at another time. If you found this, it means you made it to the intermediate pillar. They do not touch those who do not move at night. But there is an exception, the new moon. On the new moon, they search more actively. When the new moon is unknown. Watch the moon. Inu read it. Put it away next to the first note. New moon. He tried to remember what the moon had been like the last time he had seen it. Could not the last time he had seen the moon was 10 days ago, maybe, or more. The time before this place had blurred. So watch it. The second bridge took half a day. By midday, he stood on the second intermediate pillar, already closer to the northeastern one, about 70 meters away. And from there he could see the figure on that pillar much more clearly. A woman, around 30, dark short hair. She stood at the edge of her pillar and looked at him with the same squint with which he looked at her. They stared at each other across 70 meters of air. Then she made a gesture with her hands, palms turned upward. Classic. What is going on? Inu spread his hands symmetrically. No idea. She pointed at her canopy, a gesture of pride, apparently. Then at his bridges, an approving nod. Inu pointed at the bridge, then at the distance between them, then at the pickaxe. then raised his thumb. She understood. She gestured, wait, wait. Disappeared into her canopy. Came out with something in her hands. Inu could not see what. Then he saw her throw. Something flew through the air high, in a high arc, and fell, landing 15 meters short. Splashed into the clouds. A rope. She had tried to throw a rope. It had not reached. Wind and distance. Inu pointed at himself. I'm coming. She nodded. The third bridge was the hardest, 70 meters, no intermediate points. The rope was not enough for a direct span, so he had to use both ropes as a double lower line and one upper. The structure turned out worse than the previous one's, deeper sag, stronger sway. Inu crossed slowly, very slowly, with full concentration. In the middle of the span, a gust of wind. Strong, from the side. Inu crouched on the boards, wrapping both ropes with his arms, and waited it out. 5 seconds. 10. The wind passed. He rose, reached the end, stood on the platform of the northeastern pillar. The woman stood before him, looked, then said, I was already thinking you would not make it. Me too, said Inu. In the middle, she exhaled. Han Yuri, she said. Cha Inu. They looked at each other, two people who had spent 3 days alone in the sky and were now standing 2 steps apart. Did you hear the scream at night? Yuri asked. Second day. Yes. Me too, she said. From the southwestern pillar. There was a person there on the first day. Now there isn't. Silence. Do they kill? Inu asked. I don't know. Maybe he just fell. Yuri looked in that direction. Or jumped. Or moved at night. Yuri looked at him. Did you know about the night? A note. In a block. I found one too. She was silent for a moment. Do you think there are many of these notes? I think they were written by different people. At different times. So this happened before. With other people. Yes. Yuri looked at the horizon. Then where are they now? She asked quietly. Inu did not answer. Because he did not know. And because the possible answers were such that it was better not to say them aloud yet. Yuri was a biologist. An ecologist. To be precise, studied high-altitude ecosystems. Inu learned this not from her, but from details. From the way she looked at the creatures at night. Not with fear, but with that special tense attention with which scientists look at the unknown. You're studying them, he said in the second hour of their acquaintance. She did not deny it. Trying to. I can't move at night, which means only visual observation. She pointed to the wall of the canopy, where a piece of bark was attached, and on it fine scratches. Wingspan no less than 10 meters in the large ones. Atypical shape, not a bird, not a bat, not anything known. Movements patrolling. The pattern changes every night. Inu looked at the scratches. Do they react only to movement? Not only. Yuri paused. On the first night, I lit a fire small, from chips. One of them turned immediately. Flew straight toward the pillar. Pause. I put it out. It left. So light too. Light and movement. Yuri looked at the scheme. And possibly noise. But I haven't tested that. Do not test it, Inu said. I'm not going to. Her blocks had given her different things than his. He saw that from the supplies. She had food. 3 cans, a bag of crackers, a piece of dried meat. Water, 2 canteens. Fewer tools. Only a hammer and several hooks. But something he did not have at all. A fire starter. Small, simple, flint-based. Fire is not allowed, Inu said. It is during the day. Yuri looked at him evenly. I tested it. During the day, they do not react. I only saw them at night. Tested it on purpose? A small fire, daytime, ready to put it out immediately. She shrugged. Controlled risk. Inu looked at her. You are very calm. I am very scared, Yuri corrected. I'm just used to working while scared. High-altitude expeditions are always frightening. You just do the task. You just do the task, Inu repeated. Yes. They were silent. The fire starter will be useful, he said. I know, she said. They spent the 4th day together on her pillar because there were more supplies there and a better position for observation. They broke blocks. Her pillar gave different things than his, as if each pillar had its own set. The 14th block of her pillar gave an axe. Small, carpenter's, similar to the one Inu had seen in his own blocks, but different, with a different handle. 15th a piece of rope and an iron hook, similar to his hooks. 16th empty. 17th the 3rd note. Inu took it before Yuri managed to read it. Unrolled it. Again different handwriting. This one was neat, even, as if written by a person used to precision. The pillars are connected. Always. But the connection is visible only from above. Whoever climbed higher saw it. Higher does not mean better. Higher means more dangerous. Where they live. Yuri read over his shoulder. Higher? She said. They fly high at night, Inu said. Above the clouds, probably. So that is their level. The pillars are connected, Yuri repeated thoughtfully. How? Under the clouds? We have not seen it. The note says it is visible only from above. So we have to climb. Inu looked at her. You want to climb higher? No, Yuri said. But I want to know what is there. Pause. You are a climber. Former. Former is a body that remembers. Inu looked up at the sky above the pillars. Gray, with slow clouds. How far did the pillars go upward? He did not know. To where the clouds were thicker. Not now, he said. No, not now. Yuri put the note away with the others. When we are ready. By the evening of the fourth day, on Yuri's platform there stood something that Inu was already mentally calling a base, two canopies connected by a shared wall, with an expanded platform. The last part had required ingenuity. They extended the platform with boards projecting beyond the edge of the pillar, supporting them from below with horizontal beams driven into the body of the pillar with hooks. Unreliable, but it added almost a square meter. Yuri looked at the structure like a person who has criticisms, but who acknowledges the result. It holds, she said. For now, said Inu. In our work, for now is normal. At sunset the solar disk was blurred behind the clouds, but its presence could be sensed. Yuri lit a small fire. Inu watched the sky. Nothing. The daytime sky was empty, as always. They ate something hot for the first time in 4 days, warmed the canned food right in the can. Nothing special, but hot is always different. Then Yuri said, there are still people there. On the other pillars. Yes. Some have not moved for 2 days already. I'm watching. What does that mean? Either they learn not to move at night and not to show themselves, Yuri said, or they no longer can. Yes. Inu looked at the horizon at the distant dark pillars. Some were very far away, almost indistinguishable. We need more people, he said. Why? Yuri asked. Not hostile, simply direct. Because the blocks give different things to different people, Inu said. You have food and a fire starter. I have construction and navigation. We got lucky we complement each other. But there may be someone there with what we do not have. What do we lack? Inu thought. Understanding. We know what is here and how it is here. But we do not know why. And we do not know whether there is a way out. Yuri looked at him for a long time. Fine, she said. Then let's go to the others. They put out the fire when the sky began to darken. And froze. And listened to the low infrasonic sound of wings again, all night. On the fifth day, at dawn, when the sky had only just begun to lighten, they both heard a scream. Not a single, cut-off one like that night. A long one. Alive. From the south. Inu came out of the canopy immediately. Looked south. On one of the southern pillars about 400 meters away there was movement. Not just one figure, several figures. People, and clearly in panic. Even from that distance it could be read in their movements. There are two there, Yuri said beside him. Or three. On one pillar. Were they moving at night? I don't know. I didn't see. Maybe the creatures? It's light now. They left. Inu was looking at the southern pillars. Something else. Then he saw. One of the people on that pillar, a small figure, was hanging from the edge. Not jumping, holding on. Another person was pulling him by the arms from above. Someone was falling. There are two of them, Inu said. One fell off the edge. The second is holding him. A bridge will not reach them, Yuri said. For 100 meters, no intermediates. There are intermediates. Inu was looking. 2 pillars between us. One large. Pause. But I won't make it in time. While I build bridges. The figure below was still hanging. The second figure was pulling. Rope, Inu said. All the ropes we have. Why? You won't reach them. I won't reach them. But I can reach the first intermediate pillar and throw a rope to them. If they catch it, they will be able to secure themselves. 400 meters. The first intermediate is about 150 meters from here. I can get there in 20 minutes. From the intermediate to them is another 250. The rope won't reach. Then that's it. Pause. Not it, Inu said slowly. The second intermediate pillar is large, remember? There may be something in the blocks there. Tools. Or more rope. Or empty blocks. Or empty ones. They were looking at the southern pillar. The figure was still hanging. They were pulling. Go, Yuri said. I'll watch from here. If they pull him up without you, I'll give a signal. Inu was already taking the ropes. The first bridge familiar, his own. He crossed quickly, almost running as much as the structure allowed. The second to the large intermediate had to be built from scratch. Hook, throw, fastening boards. For 15 minutes, he worked fast, his hands doing the familiar work by themselves. On the large intermediate pillar, the platform was 1.5 by 1.5 meters. First of all, he looked south. The figure was still hanging, but almost pulled up already. Just a little more. Inu struck the blocks hastily, breaking his own system. The first empty, the second hook, the third empty, the fourth rope, long, 20 meters. He was coiling it into a throwing bundle, already looking south. The figure was pulled up. Both people were on the platform. Alive. Inu exhaled, lowered the rope, stood on the large intermediate pillar, and looked at the southern pillar. Two, both standing, one holding onto the other weakly, but standing. Then one of them raised a hand. Inu raised his in response. Not just a greeting, something else. A signal that he sees them, that they are not alone. From 400 meters between two hands in the sky, he began building the route south that same day. 2 additional bridges to the large intermediate and farther to the southern pillar where the two were. He did not finish in one day. It was getting dark. Froze in a canopy on the intermediate pillar, small, temporary, for one night. The creatures came over this pillar too. Stillness saved him. On the 6th day, he finished the route. On the southern pillar, there turned out to be 2 men, not strangers to each other. Brothers. Park Minjun the elder, 38 years old, former soldier, then a construction worker. Park Sanho the younger, 31, mechanic. Soldier and mechanic. Inu looked at them calmly, appraisingly. Both tired, both alive. The elder had his arm bandaged with a strip of cloth. Fell, scraped the skin off on the stone while he was holding on. How long have you been here? Inu asked. 6 days, Minjun said. Ended up together? Yes. On one pillar right away. We got lucky. Pause. We're not lucky. It is harder for 2 to feed themselves. The blocks give the same for 2 as for 1. That is not so, Inu said. There are 2 of us, we get twice as much. We don't. Interesting. So not always 2 people equals double output. Depends on something else. What do you have? Inu asked. Minjun showed. Tools a lot, more than Inu and Yuri together. Several pickaxes, a saw, a hammer, hooks in large quantity. Little food. Critically little water. Sanho was silent almost the whole time. He looked at Inu's bridges with the professional expression of a mechanic evaluating someone else's structure. The weak point is the knots, he said at last. The upper ones. Under load in the wind they stretch. I know, Inu said. No others yet. There are, Sanho said. I'll show you. He had little to show. He took a rope and in a few minutes demonstrated another fastening method, more complex, but much more reliable. Inu watched attentively, memorizing. Where did you learn that? Rigging on ships, Sanho said. Worked 2 years at a shipyard before mechanics. Ropes, height, fastening under constant load and wind. A rigger in the sky that was more useful than it sounded. Coming with us? Inu asked. The brothers looked at each other. That silent conversation that exists only between people who have known each other a long time. Yes, Minjun said. They returned as 4. Along the bridges slowly, one at a time. Sanho walked last, and at every crossing stopped, checked the knots, tightened where it had stretched. Silently, methodically, Inu watched him over his shoulder. A good person in the right place always looks like this. Just doing what he knows how to do. By noon they were at Yuri's base. Yuri met them without unnecessary words, looked at Minjun's arm, said, "Let me see." She examined it, washed it with water, bandaged it more neatly. Minjun was silent while she worked with the expression of a man embarrassed by someone else's care, but understanding that it was necessary. "Thank you," he said. "It's not infected," Yuri replied. "Yet. For people on Yuri's platform, crowded. But manageable." Sanho immediately began readying the knots of the bridges, without waiting to be asked. Minjun inspected the base walls, roof, expanded platform with the look of a man who had built with his own hands and understood what he was looking at. "Well done," he said to Inu. Yuri helped. "Who came up with the expansion?" "Together." Minjun nodded. Sat by the wall. Took out from inside his jacket something small, wrapped in cloth. Handed it to Inu. "Found it in a block 3 days ago. Didn't know what to do with it." Inu unwrapped it. A metal plate. Not a noted diagram. The engraving was thin, precise. Top view. Pillars, lines between them. Like a map, only vertical. And in the center of the whole diagram, one pillar marked with a cross. "What is this cross?" Inu asked. "We don't know," Minjun said. "But it is on every diagram we have seen." "How many diagrams?" 3. all from the blocks. All different angles, different details. But this cross is always in the same place. Inu looked at the plate. Yuri came over, stood beside him, looked over his shoulder. The central pillar, she said. If this is a top-view map, it is somewhere in the center of the whole structure. The pillars are not random, Inu said quietly. They are arranged according to a system. And in the center there is something, Yuri said. Silence. Or someone, Minjun added. On the seventh day a man came to them himself. Not from a neighboring pillar, from a distant one, from where Inu did not expect at all. From the west, about 300 meters. They had not built bridges there. Inu had looked west, but had not seen people there. So the man had built by himself from that side toward them. He appeared on the bridge when Inu was making his morning round. He was simply walking along the rope decking, confidently, without panic. Short, elderly, around 60, maybe more. In a dark jacket, with a small bag on his back. He arrived, stood before Inu. Looked. You built quickly, he said. His voice calm, with a slight rasp. You too, Inu replied. Alone. This is not my first time, the man said simply. Inu looked at him. What do you mean not my first time? Exactly what I said. Pause. What is your name? Co Wunchiel. The man set down the bag. I was here. Before. They became 5. Co Wunchiel sat in the center of the platform, and all 4 positioned themselves around him, not deliberately. It just happened that way. Natural geometry. A person who knows more draws the space around himself. He spoke without haste. In short phrases. Without excess. This is my 3rd time here, he said. The first time 12 years ago, if counted by time down there. He nodded downward to where the ground should have been. The second 8 years ago. The third now. What do you mean down there? Yuri asked. Below. The earth exists. Wunchiel looked at her evenly. We are not hanging in a vacuum. We are above the earth. High up, but above it. Then why are there only clouds and fog below? Because the height is too great to see. 3 kilometers, roughly. Maybe more. He fell silent. The first time I tried to go down. Didn't make it, found another way out. What way out? Inu asked. The central pillar, Wunchiel said. The cross on the diagrams. You found diagrams? 3 pieces. Good. He nodded. The central pillar is not just a pillar. There is something else there. Higher, with different blocks. And there is a descent. A descent down? Minjun asked. A descent home, Wunchiel said. Silence. 5 people in the sky, on a stone platform, in the wind, and one of them says the word home the way people speak of something real. Why did you return? Yuri asked. Wunchiel looked at her for a long time. Because the first time I left alone. I did not wait for the others. Pause. Then it turned out that was wrong. Not in a moral sense. In a mechanical one. The descent works for a group, one does not leave. I came back. The second time? The second time there were 3 of us. It was not enough. 2 left. I stayed again, returned here. He looked at his hands. Now I know how many are needed. I know the route. I know about the creatures. Pause. That is why I am here for the 3rd time. How many people are needed? Inu asked. 7. Minimum. There are 5 of us. I know. That means 2 more. Yes. Inu looked at the horizon. On the other pillars, distant, barely visible, there was movement. Someone was alive. Someone else was still holding on. Where is the central pillar? He asked. Wunchiel took out his own diagram, the 4th one. Placed it beside the 3 they already had. They looked together. For diagrams, different angles, but one cross. If you align them. There, Inu said. Finger on the diagram. About 3 kilometers to the northwest. 4, Wunchiel corrected. I measured by steps on the bridges. 4. For kilometers in the sky. Across rope bridges between stone pillars. How many days? Sanho asked. Depends on the route, Wunchiel said. If the route is correct, 6 to 7 days. If not longer. Or nowhere to come to. Why nowhere? Because some routes break off. The pillars collapse. Or there simply are no crossings. He looked at Inu. Your pickaxe and skill are the main thing here. Have you understood that already? Beginning to, Inu said. On the 8th day they found the 6th person. Did not find, he made himself known. Called out. Loudly, from the eastern direction, the voice came on the wind in fragments, but clearly. Hey, anyone? Inu and Minjun went toward the sound. Eastern pillar about 180 meters from the base, with no intermediates. Inu built the bridge in 40 minutes. Minjun helped, silent and precise, like a man who understands the task without explanation. On the eastern pillar there was a man about 25 years old. Young, thin, with sharply attentive eyes and that special expression that people who have sat alone for a long time have a mixture of relief at meeting people and caution, because people are different. Bong Jiho, programmer. You build bridges, he said instead of greeting. Not a question, a statement. He looked at the structure with the professional squint of a man used to analyzing systems. Yes, Inu said. I observed for 3 days, Jiho said. Counted the pillars, built a diagram in my head. Pause. Your route is not optimal. Inu looked at him. What do you mean not optimal? You are going through intermediate pillars chaotically. I saw your crossings. If you go through this one, he pointed to a barely visible pillar to the north, in that one. Then the path to the central pillar is shorter by a third. How do you know about the central pillar? Jiho showed his hand, a drawn diagram on his palm, with a simple stone, already faded. But the structure was readable. From the blocks? No, I drew it myself. By observation. He looked at Inu. I did not sleep properly for 3 days, all the time I watched and counted. Why? Because when you do not understand what is happening, the only thing you can do is collect data. Inu looked at the diagram on the palm, then at the young man. You are coming with us. I was waiting to be called, Jiho said. 3 days. Why didn't you come yourself? There was no bridge. You could have asked. I did ask, he said calmly. Half an hour ago. Inu almost smiled. The 7th was harder to find. Wonchiel said a 7th was needed, and that he knew where. In the west, far away, a separate pillar, clearly visible in the morning. He had seen movement there the first days, then the movement stopped. Is someone alive there? Yuri asked. I don't know, Wonchiel said. That is why we need to check. Do we need exactly that person? No, we need any 7th. But this one is the closest of those who may be alive. The path west took a day. 7 bridges. Jiho turned out to be right about the route. His diagram shortened the way, and by evening of the 9th day, they were at the western pillar. There was a person there, alive but barely. A woman about 45 years old, lying in a small shelter bed, almost falling apart. First look, dehydrated, weakened. Yuri crouched beside her, touched her forehead. Fever, she said quietly. Not high, but there is some. From what? Minjun asked. A wound on the leg. Old, untreated. Yuri examined it. Not critical, if we start now. They had enough water, several canteens obtained from blocks over the past days. Food too. The woman opened her eyes when Yuri began washing the wound. At first she looked vaguely, then the focus improved. People, she said. Simply the way one says a word whose reality one has stopped believing in. People, Yuri confirmed. You are safe. For now. For now, the woman repeated. Smiled slightly. Honestly, what is your name? Kim Yonsuk. Mathematics teacher. Ms. Yonsuk, can you walk? Give me a little. They gave it. Not a little a day. They set up a temporary camp on her pillar, waited. Over that day they broke blocks her pillar yielded well, as if it had been waiting for someone to come to it. 3 items, one after another. Food, rope, and in the 3rd block something no one had yet had. A small book in a leather binding. No title on the cover. Inu opened it. The pages were filled not by one author's hand, by different hands, as if the book had passed from person to person and each had added something of their own. The first entry was old, the ink pale. The pillars were not created by nature. The edges are too even, the blocks too regular. Someone built this. Or something. The second hand different ink, fresher. The creatures are not guards. They do not prevent us from moving toward the central pillar. They only observe. I tried walking toward the center at night, they did not react. They react to chaotic movement, not to directed movement. Check. The third hand, checked. I confirm at night you can move toward the center. Slowly, without fuss. They see panic, not movement. Inu reread this twice. They see panic, not movement. Not what the note said. The note said, movement. This person clarified, panic. The difference is significant. The fourth hand very fresh. The ink had not yet faded. The central pillar waits for 7. I checked with fewer, it does not work. I waited for 8, it did not work either. Exactly 7. No more, no less. The signature, just initials, SW Wonchiel. Inu raised his gaze to the old man. He was looking at him calmly. Your entry, Inu said. Yes. So this book was here before you. You only added to it. Yes. Who wrote the other entries? I do not know all of them. Some people from previous arrivals, like me. Some from cycles before me. Cycles, Jiho repeated. So this repeats itself. Yes. According to what system? I do not know, Wonchil said. That is the only thing I have not figured out in 3 times. Jiho accepted this silently, with the expression of a person for whom an unresolved system is worse than danger. The unknown troubles more than the known bad. We will figure it out, he said. Perhaps, Wonchil said. Yeonsuk was able to walk the next day. Weak, but on her feet with a cane, which Minjun had made from a board with the edge sawed off. The leg held. Her face was pale, but with that expression Inu had already noticed in people after the critical point, composure. When it had been worse and became bearable, bearable feels like a gift. There were 7 of them. Inu looked at the group and thought about the word 7 as a separate object. Not just a number, a condition. A mechanical condition, as Wonchil had said. 7 keys. Tomorrow we move out, he said in the evening. Today we prepare. What does prepare mean? Sanho asked. Ropes, tools, food, everything we have, we take. We break more blocks one last chance before the road. And we sleep. Properly, in turns. Tomorrow is a long way. According to Jiho's diagram, 4 days, he said. 4 days across bridges with an injured leg and supplies, Yuri added, looking at Yeonsuk. I'll manage, the teacher said. I know, Yuri said. I am just calculating. The last blocks gave different things. Inu broke them together with Minjun systematically, according to his scheme. 5 blocks, 3 useful. The first boards, as usual. The second, a metal container with a lid. Small, airtight. Inside, dry rations for several people. Real ones, packaged. The third, the last note. Not in a block on the surface of the stone, as if carved long ago and deep. Inu simply had not noticed until he looked from the right angle. The words were short. The creatures are not enemies. But the central pillar is not an exit. It is an entrance. Be ready for what you will see. Inu looked at the words for a long time. Then at Wonchil. An entrance, he said. Wonchil nodded slowly, the way people nod when they already knew the word, but had not said it. You knew this? Yes. Why didn't you say? The old man looked at him. Because you need to see it yourselves. Not hear it, see it. Pause. I told the 2 previous groups. In both cases it created fear too early. Fear interfered with movement. And now? Now you have the book, Wonchil said. You read it. Now you know as much as I told those people. The difference is that you found it yourselves. He looked at Inu. What is found is perceived differently from what is told. Inu thought about this for several seconds. What kind of entrance is it? You will see. Mr. Wonchil. No, the old man said softly, but without doubt. This is not stubbornness. This is experience. Pause. I may have been wrong in both previous cycles for one reason, I said too much. This time less. Inu looked at him, then nodded. Fine. The night before the road was quiet, unexpectedly quiet. There were fewer creatures, he heard only 3 or 4, not 20 as before. Maybe fewer people scattered across lonely pillars, fewer observation points. Or something else had changed. He did not know. He slept properly for the first time in 9 days. Not fully, not deeply, but he slept. He woke because Jiho quietly sat down beside him, his watch. All quiet, Jiho said in a whisper. Good, Inu said. Lie down. I don't want to, Jiho said. I'm thinking. About what? Pause. About the fact that we are going to the central pillar, and it is an entrance. Jiho looked at the sky, starry, clear. Entrance to where? I don't know. Aren't you afraid? Inu thought honestly. I am, he said. But here too it is frightening. It is the same everywhere. Better to be afraid and move than to be afraid and stand still. Jiho was silent for a moment. You are a climber, he said. Former, who builds bridges in the sky and walks on them faster than I walk on the ground, Jiho said. That is not former. That is just a person who forgot what he can do. Inu looked at him. Are you a programmer? Yes. How does programming help you here? System thinking, Jiho said. Any problem is a system. Find the input data, find the logic, find the output. Pause. These pillars are a system. The creatures are part of the system. We were placed here, that is also part of it. Somewhere there is input data, somewhere output. Is the central pillar the output? Or the next level of nesting, Jiho said. An entrance into another system. Inu looked at him. Aren't you afraid? Very much, Jiho said calmly. But I have no data for a justified fear of a specific threat. Until there is data, fear is irrational. Pause. I try to be afraid rationally. How is that working? Badly, Jiho admitted. But better than not trying. Inu laughed quietly, not waking the others. The first time in 9 days. Jiho also smiled a little, faintly. Day 1 of the journey. They set out at dawn according to Jiho's diagram, along the optimized route. Inu in front, Wonshil beside him as navigator, Sanho behind to check the knots of every new bridge. New bridges were built where there were no ready ones. Inu worked fast. 10 days of practice were showing. His hands knew the movement. Throw, hook, tension, check, boards. Repeat. Jiho walked and looked at everything around with recording attention. His head turned, his eyes fixed things. Sometimes he stopped, looked at a pillar they were passing. Someone was there, he said in the 3rd hour of the journey, pointing to a small pillar off to the side. Inu looked. Remains of a canopy broken, old. Ropes burned through, not torn, precisely burned through. Fire at night, Inu said quietly. Silence. Not everyone had read the notes. Not everyone knew about fire at night. They passed by and did not stop. There was nothing to do here. But something shifted in the group. Silent, shared. A reminder that they were not the first and that not everyone had made it. Yeonsuk walked more slowly than the others, with a cane, but she walked. She did not complain. Sometimes Minjun slowed his pace, walked beside her, not offering a hand, just beside her. She did not ask. He did not impose. It worked. By the evening of the first day of the journey, 7 bridges, 5 new pillars crossed. They made camp on a wide intermediate pillar about 3 by 3 meters, enough for 7 lying close together. No fire. It was getting dark quickly. The creatures came 2 hours after dark, many more than at their old base. Through a slit, Inu counted more than 30 silhouettes. More, because closer to the center. The closer to the central pillar, the more of them there are. It was a thought he did not say aloud, but it landed exactly. He lay motionless, heard the others nearby not moving either. All 7 held. Day 2 of the journey. On the 3rd bridge of that day, Sanho stopped. Stop, he said quietly. Inu turned. Sanho was pointing down under the bridge. Into the clouds. Inu looked. In the clouds below, much lower, something was glowing. Not blue-yellow. Warm, earthly. Blurry. The fog interfered, but clearly. Lights, Minjun said. The earth, Wonshil said quietly. All 7 stood on the bridge, not at the same time, one at a time, because the bridge would not hold, and looked down at the warm yellow flicker behind the clouds. Yeonsuk looked the longest. Someone lives there, she said. Or lived, Jiho said. Or we ourselves will return there, Inu said. Silence. Then Yuri said, that means there is definitely somewhere to go. They moved on. Day 3 of the journey. In the morning of the 3rd day, Jiho raised a hand stop sign. Look, ahead, about 50 meters away, a pillar. Different. Not like the others. Taller, wider, darker in color. And around it, at a distance, in a circle, several creatures. Not night day. The creatures hung in the air around the pillar slowly, on patrol, as if guarding it. They are here in the daytime too, Minjun said quietly. Because we are close, Wonshil said. Is this the central one? Inu asked. No, the penultimate intermediate, but already in the zone of the central one. Wonshil was looking at the creatures. They are always here. The closer the more of them, and in the daytime too. Will they let us pass? If we walk correctly. What is correctly? Wonshil turned to the group. Remember the 3rd entry in the book? He asked. They see panic, not movement. We remember, Inu said. We walk calmly, Wonshil said. Each one calmly. Even step, even breathing, gaze forward. Do not look at them. That triggers the instinct to avoid, which they read. How do you not look at a creature hanging a meter away? Yeonsuk asked directly. Look, but do not react, Wonshil said. The way you look at a lamppost. You see it, you do not notice it. Is that possible? Necessary. Pause. Inu was looking at the creatures. In daylight for the first time truly. The bodies were angular, with irregular geometry, sharp edges, like crystals, but flexible. The color was dark, almost black, but with a sheen that changed as it moved. Not eyes, or eyes, but not where you expect them. Something on the front edges of the wings that caught the light. They were not looking at the group. Or they were looking in a different way. Let's go, Inu said. The crossing of the patrolled pillar took 20 minutes. 20 minutes that felt different from any others. Not slower, just fuller. Each step was separate. Each breath was separate. A creature hovered above the bridge while they were walking. One large one, with a wingspan of about 12 meters, hung 5 meters above their heads. The infrasound pressed on the chest. Inu walked and looked ahead at the next board under his feet, at the rope in his hands, at the even line of the horizon. Not at the creature. Past it. Out of the corner of his eye it slowly turned. The sharp edge of its wing passed beside the upper rope, almost touched it. Inu did not flinch. Behind him the others. He heard their steps even, one by one. Yuri, then Wonchil, then Jiho. His breathing could be heard a little faster, but he held on. Yeonsuk, the measured tapping of her cane. Sanho, Minjun last. Everyone crossed. The creature remained behind. On the other side of the pillar they stood there, and no one said anything for several seconds. Then Yeonsuk said quietly, almost to herself, "A lamppost. It works." Day 4. The central pillar was visible from the morning, from the very first bridge, when the clouds parted for a short while. It was different. Not just taller, significantly so. Twice, maybe 3 times higher than the other pillars. And wider. And that could be seen even from a far more complex. Not a smooth rectangular body like the ordinary ones. Ledges, tiers, something like windows, dark squares at a height. And at the very top, above everything, something was glowing. Not blue, not yellow-white. Quiet, even. Inu stood and looked. "There it is," Wonchil said beside him. "Yes. How do you feel?" Inu thought about an honest answer. "Like before the first serious route," he said. "When you know that you can do it, but do not yet know exactly how it will all go. A good feeling? A right one." Wonchil nodded. "Then let's go." They built the last bridge together. All 7 each did what he knew how to do. Inu threw the hooks. Sanho tied the knots quickly, reliably, with rigging precision. Minjun kept the rope under tension. Jiho calculated the distance and angle. Yuri checked each board for strength before laying it. Yeonsuk laid out the spare rope, handed the needed length at the needed moment. Without words, she saw the logic faster than they asked. Wonchil stood and watched. "You work well," he said. "Be quiet, Mr. Wonchil," Jiho said without rudeness. "You are interfering with the counting." The old man fell silent with a smile. The bridge took 2 hours. The last one, the longest, about 20 meters across open space, where the wind was stronger than at any other point on the way, as if there were its own weather around the central pillar. Inu crossed first. The bridge held better than any previous one. Sanho knew his business. He stepped onto the platform of the central pillar and stopped. The platform was large, about 10 by 10 meters, carved from one piece of dark stone, without cracks. In the center of the platform, a round opening, about 1.5 meters in diameter, going downward. From it came a faint white light, the very same they had seen from afar. Around the opening at equal distances were 7 carved symbols, identical in shape, different in size. Inu looked at them, then at the opening, then at the sky. There were no creatures here, not a single one. All the patrols moved around, not entering the platform of the central pillar, as if there were an invisible boundary. "They do not enter," Jiho said behind his back. He had already crossed. "They do not," Wonchil confirmed, stepping onto the platform last. All 7 of them stood on the large stone platform around the glowing opening. 7 symbols, Jiho said quietly. 7 people. A coincidence? Yuri asked. "There are no coincidences in systems," Jiho said. Inu approached the opening. Looked down. The light was soft, not cutting. The depth was unclear. He threw a small stone. It fell soundlessly, swallowed by the light. "There is something down there," he said to Wonchil. "You were here. What is there?" Wonchil stood by the opening and looked into it for a long time. "I was here twice," he said at last. "And both times I stopped right here." He pointed to the place where he stood, a meter from the edge. "Because those who went farther I never saw again." "So it worked," Minjun said. "So they left," Wonchil agreed. "I do not know where to. I saw how they jumped, disappeared in the light." He looked at the group. "Each time I stopped last. And each time I stayed." "Why?" Yeonsuk asked. Wonchil was silent. "Because you were afraid?" She asked, not harshly, without judgment. "Just a question." "Yes," the old man said quietly. "I was afraid." Pause. Inu looked at him. "This time?" he asked. Wonchil raised his eyes. "This time no," he said. 7 symbols around the opening. Jiho crouched, examining them up close. Ran his finger along one, carved deeply, precisely. Not roughly, not hastily. "Someone made this with intention. They activate," he said. "Or are supposed to. Look, the edges are different. Some glow slightly, some do not." 3 of the 7 symbols indeed had a faint glow along the edges, the same white light as from the opening. "For we're dark." 3 of the 7, Inu said. "They're on the platform right now." He counted quickly. 7 on the platform and 3 symbols are glowing, Jiho said. Earlier there were 3 other people here. Previous cycles, Woncheol said. Those who jumped. Their symbols remained. So, we need to activate the 4 remaining ones. There are 4 of us new ones, Yuri said. Jiho, me, Minjun, Sanho. We were not in previous cycles. Me too, Yeonsuk said. 5 new ones, Jiho corrected. 3 are glowing, Inu said. 5 new ones. 3 plus 5 is 8. There are 7 symbols. Silence. 1 extra, Minjun said. Inu looked at the symbols. Then at Woncheol. You are here for the 3rd time, he said. Yes. Your symbol is one of the 3 glowing ones. Because you have already been here. Possibly. 5 new ones plus 2 glowing from previous times makes 7. Exactly. Woncheol looked at him. You think fast. That means 1 glowing symbol should not be there, Inu said. There are 3, but there should be 2 from previous times. He looked at the 3 glowing ones. Who else has been here before besides you? None of us, Yuri said. Then 3 glowing ones is wrong, Inu said. Or the system counts differently. Jiho stood up, looked at the symbols. Or, he said slowly, one of us has already been here, and does not remember. Silence. Everyone looked at one another. That is impossible, Sanho said. Woncheol did not remember the first time, Jiho said evenly. He himself said the first time was like us, without memory of previous times. Pause. Maybe one of us has been here and does not remember either. The silence lasted a long time. Then Yeonsuk said, I do not remember anything about this place. But she fell silent for a second. I knew how to use a pickaxe. On the first day I knew. I did not think, I just did it. Everyone looked at her. I am a mathematics teacher, she said. How would I know how to handle a pickaxe? Yeonsuk approached the dark symbols. Stopped at 1 the 4th from the north. Looked at it. Then placed her palm on the stone. The symbol flared instantly, brightly. The 4th glowing one. She jerked her hand away. Looked at her palm. I was here, she said quietly. Not frightened, with that special expression when the puzzle comes together. And it is relief and a new question at the same time. And did not remember, Jiho said. No. So memory returns here. He looked at her symbol. At the opening. Inu looked at the remaining 3 dark symbols. 3 more were needed. Someone's symbols had to light up. 7 in total. He approached the dark symbol, the first one, the northern one. Placed his hand. Nothing. Not his. Yuri, the second symbol. Nothing. Minjun, the third. It flared. Minjun removed his hand. Looked at the symbol. For a long time. I do not remember, he said. Not always at once, Woncheol said. For me the memory returned gradually. Days later, then weeks after the exit. Exit, Minjun repeated. Yes. There were 2 dark symbols left. 6 glowing. The 7th was needed. Sanho, the next dark one. Hand on the stone. It flared. Sanho stepped back. Looked at his brother. We are here together, he said quietly. Again. Minjun looked at him. Something in his face, a slow recognition. Every time? He asked. I do not know. But here again. The last dark symbol. One of the 7 was still dark. One person in the group who had been here before and had not yet recognized himself. Inu looked at the remaining dark symbol. Then at the group Jiho, Yuri. Jiho went first. Placed his hand. Nothing. So Yuri. She stood and looked at the last dark symbol. I do not feel that I was here, she said. Neither did I, Woncheol said. Yuri approached slowly. Placed her palm on the stone. The symbol flared, but differently than the others. Brighter. For a second the whole stone of the platform responded with a faint glow along the cracks, along the edges, up the body of the pillar. Then it went out. Only the symbol remained. All 7 are glowing. Yuri stood by the stone, not removing her hand. I was here, she said, and her voice was different. Not quieter, not firmer, just different. As if something had shifted. And I remember something. What? Inu asked. She turned around. I remember you, she said. Silence. Inu looked at her. We met. Here, Yuri said. Not there, not on the ground. Here. She let go of the stone. You did not make it last time. You stayed, like Woncheol stays. Pause. That is why you do not remember. Those who leave remember. Those who stay do not. Inu stood completely motionless. Jiho looked at him. So you were here too, Jiho said. But you did not activate the symbol. Because he is new in this cycle, Woncheol said quietly. His counter reset, he stayed, returned without memory. The symbol is not glowing because for the system, this is his first time. But I am still one of the 7, Inu said. You were one of the 7 from the very beginning, Woncheol said. Inu looked at the dark stone under his feet, at the 7 glowing symbols, at the white light from the opening, then raised his head. Then let's go, he said. They stood by the opening, all 7 in a circle, 1 by each symbol. Inu looked down into the white light. How? Minjun asked. We just jump? We just jump, Wonchil said. Exactly that. And what will happen? I do not know precisely, the old man said. Both times I watched the others jump, they disappeared. Quickly, without a scream. Pause. It seemed soft to me. Seemed, Sanho repeated. Seemed. Yeonsuk stood by her symbol and looked into the opening. There is ground down there, she said. I know it. I remember something vaguely, but I know. There is ground down there. Then what are we waiting for, Jiho said. He took a step toward the edge. Mr. Jiho, Inu stopped him. What? Not first. Why? Because if something goes wrong, someone must watch. Jiho thought for a second, nodded with the look of a person who recognizes logic even if he does not like it. Then who goes first? Inu looked at Wonchil. You, he said. The old man raised his eyes. Me? You have been here for the 3rd time. You know this place better than all of us. And you said this time you are not afraid. Pause. So you. Wonchil looked at Inu for a long time, then nodded slowly, the way people nod when accepting something they have thought about for a long time. He approached the edge, stood, looked down. 7 times I was in the sky on these pillars, he said quietly, not to anyone specific, simply into the space. 3 cycles. 6 times I stayed. Pause. Time. He jumped. Not with a run-up, he simply stepped forward. The way people step from a threshold into a familiar room. The light received him softly, without sound, without a flash. Wonchil was simply there, and then he was not. The white light from the opening did not change at all. Silence. Then Minjun said, Fine. Fine, Inu agreed. Yeonsuk went next on her own, without words, without a pause. She simply approached and stepped. She braced her cane against the edge one last movement and disappeared. Sanho looked at his brother. Minjun nodded. They jumped together side by side, shoulder to shoulder. The light received both at once, without separating them. 3 remained. Inu, Yuri, Jiho. Jiho looked into the opening. There is another system there, he said. We do not know the input data. No, Inu agreed. That is uncomfortable. I know. But, Jiho said and fell silent for a second. Data can only be gathered from the inside. He jumped. 2 remained. Yuri looked at Inu. Do you remember anything at all? She asked. After what I said. Inu thought honestly. No, he said. Nothing. The pickaxe, he said. On the first day, I knew how to hold a pickaxe. Why I did not think. I just knew. Yuri looked at him. You always know how to hold what is needed, she said quietly. That is not forgotten. The hands remember. The hands remember, she repeated. Yes. Pause. Around them the same high-altitude wind, constant. The sky gray. The creatures circling somewhere beyond the boundary of the platform, not entering. 7 symbols glowing evenly, without changes. Stone pillars standing in the sky as far as the eye can see, in all directions. Height everywhere. Nowhere ground. Inu looked at all this one last time. Not long, just for a second, deliberately. To remember. Not because it was good, because it was real. Everything real is worth looking at one last time. Together? Yuri asked. Together, Inu said. They stepped forward. The white light was not light. He understood that already inside in those fractions of a second or hours, or whatever it was in time, while the transition lasted. The white light was not a light phenomenon. It was a sensation dense, without form, as if he had found himself inside something that had no edges. Not frightening, not warm and not cold, just neutral, like body temperature and water of the same temperature. As if the boundaries had disappeared. Then a smell. Earth, grass, dampness after rain. Then a sound. A bird. A distant, ordinary bird somewhere in the crowns of the trees. Then weight. His own weight, given to the ground that held it. Inu opened his eyes. Forest. Ordinary, living, with green crowns and damp soil underfoot. Morning real, with warm light through the leaves, with mist near the ground, with a smell that could not be confused with anything. He stood in a forest clearing. Beside him, all 6 of them. Alive, whole. Wonchil stood by a tree, leaning his hand against the bark, simply stood there, looking up through the leaves. Yeonsuk sat on the ground, her cane beside her, and held a handful of earth in her palms. Simply held it. The brothers stood nearby, shoulder to shoulder. Minjun was looking around, Sanho was looking down at his feet. Jiho was already taking something out of his pocket, a scrap of paper, a pencil, beginning to write. Yuri stood beside Inu. She looked at him. "Do you remember anything now?" she asked. Inu stood and waited carefully, the way one waits for ripples on water to settle after a stone has been thrown. Then slowly, like something rising from the bottom, it came. Not an event, not a face, not a specific moment. A sensation. A pickaxe in his hands, wind in his face, height under his feet. A bridge, another bridge, not the one he had built, now old, more poorly made, the first time. And a voice, not words, simply the tone of a voice. Someone nearby was saying something. Something, he said to Yuri. Vaguely. "It will come," she said. Woncheol said gradually. "Your voice," he said. "I think it was yours." Yuri looked at him. "Yes," she said quietly. "Mine." Woncheol pushed himself away from the tree and walked over to the group. He looked different than in the sky, or no, not different. It was just that there, at the height, there had been one context, and here another, and a person in a different context is read differently. Old, tired. But here, finally, the third time, Minjun said to him. The third time, Woncheol confirmed. "How do you feel?" Woncheol thought for a second. "Like a person who walked a long time and got there," he said. "My legs hurt, but I made it." Minjun nodded. Sanho was looking at the sky through the leaves there, upward, where beyond the crowns and clouds was the place they had come from. "They are still there," he said. "The creatures." "Yes," Woncheol said. "Always. Always, as far as I know." "Are they guarding the pillars?" Woncheol was silent for a moment. "I thought about that for a long time," he said. "Thought for 3 cycles. Pause. Now I think no. They are not guarding them." He was looking upward. "The pillars are their place. They live there. As we live on the ground, they live in the sky. We ended up in their home. And they watched us," Yuri said. "The way we watch wild animals that came into the city," Woncheol said. "With curiosity. Sometimes with caution." Pause. "Not with malice." "Then why that person on the southwestern pillar?" Inu asked. "The scream at night." "By himself," Woncheol said quietly. "Not them. By himself, from fear, from loneliness, from not knowing." He looked at Inu. "That is exactly why it was important to gather together. Not only mechanically 7 for the exit, but also because one does not survive alone in the sky. Not because of the creatures, because of oneself." Silence. A bird was singing somewhere higher up. The mist by the ground was beginning to rise. The morning was brightening. Jiho finished writing and put away the paper. "A question," he said. "Speak," Inu said. "We are here. Ground. Forest." He was looking around. "Where exactly? How far from where we were? Did time pass there while we were here? Is it the same world or not?" Woncheol looked at him. "Good questions. Are there answers?" "To the first, approximately in the same place where we were vertically," Woncheol said. "The pillars stand over real ground. We came out roughly over the same place that was below." Pause. "To the second, time passed. I do not know exactly how much. The first time, when I came back, 2 weeks had passed. The second time, 3 days. Unpredictable. Yes. To the third, the same world," Woncheol continued. "I checked. People, cities, land, everything the same. We leave and return to the same world. Only, somewhat changed." "How?" Yonsuk asked. She stood up. She did not let go of the earth in her hands, clenched it in her fist like something important. "How changed?" Woncheol looked at her. "In different ways," he said, "each in his own." Pause. "I became calmer. After the first time I stopped rushing. After the second, I stopped being afraid of heights completely." He smiled a little. "I do not yet know what after the third." "You will find out," Yonsuk said. "I will." They walked through the forest toward the place where it was lighter between the trees. A road, or an opening, or something living beyond the trees. Inu walked and felt the ground under his feet, every step, every unevenness. After 10 days of stone pillars and rope bridges, the ground was excessive in its reliability. It simply holds, without effort, without testing. Yuri was beside him. "Are you thinking about the next time?" he asked. "No," she said. "Not now." "I am thinking," Inu said. "About what exactly?" "About those who are there now," he said. "We left. The pillars remained. The creatures remained. And surely someone is there. Right now? Standing on the top and not understanding from which side to hang over." Yuri was silent for a moment. "We cannot return there ourselves." "No. We are returned. Or not returned," he thought. "But the book remained there. The diagrams. The bridges, some of them." Pause. The next person will find more than we found. Because we left it. Because each time someone leaves something. They kept walking. The forest was becoming thinner ahead. There was an opening, and beyond it something could be made out. A road. A real one, with ruts. Civilization, even if small, even if a country road, but real. Inu stopped by the last trees, looked at the road, then raised his gaze upward, to where beyond the clouds there was height, to where stone and wind and white light were. Nothing was visible, only the sky, an ordinary morning sky. Behind his back the others stood, all 7 of them at the edge of the forest. They looked at the road. Well, Sanho said, simply the way people speak before taking the next step. Not solemnly. Simply, well, Minjun agreed. And they came out of the forest. Somewhere high above, 3 kilometers above ground level, stone pillars stand. On one of them lies a wooden book in a leather binding. In it there are 7 handwritings. The 8th page is blank. Beside it a pickaxe. New, with a polished handle. On the upper block of the first pillar something small is carved. You need to come close to read it. It says, hang over the edge. Strike the crack. Hold the rope tight. An arrow beside the inscription points to the northwest. For the first time an arrow with a direction. In previous cycles it was not there. Inu woke up at 3 in the morning. Not from a sound, from a sensation. Sharp, like a blow from within. He lay in his apartment, in the dark, and knew with that absolute certainty that only memories have, not dreams, that he had been there. That he had broken stone. That he had built bridges in the sky with the wind in his face. He lay there and looked at the ceiling. The memory was returning, just as Wonchil had said. Not all at once. In pieces, unevenly. First sensations. The cold of stone under his palms. The infrasound of the creatures in his ribcage. The smell of the rope that you hold for a long time. Then images. Yuri counting something on the wall of the canopy. Wonchil at the edge of the opening. Yonsuk with a handful of earth. Then details that mattered. The route. The blocks. The output pattern. By dawn he already knew enough. He got up, made coffee, sat by the window with a mug in his hands, and looked at the street. Ordinary, morning, with people going about their business and knowing nothing. The next world is waiting. You remember now. He remembered. The question was different. How much time remained until the next time? The answer came 11 days later. He woke up on a pillar. The difference was absolute. In the first cycle, confusion, looking around, several minutes of just breathing. This time he opened his eyes, felt the wind, saw the sky, and immediately got up. Not carefully, not checking. He got up and looked around quickly, methodically. Pillar. Platform 2 by 2. Pickaxe. Nothing else beside it. The very same pillar? He looked at the horizon, northeast, south, west. Other pillars. A different arrangement, a different pillar, a different point. So, not the same one. Good. So, the place changes. The person does not. He took the pickaxe habitually, with the correct grip, thumb on the stop, and looked at the body of the pillar. Began. He broke the first block in 3 blows. Not in 7, in 3. The body remembered the angle. Remembered where to strike, with what force, at which point of the crack. 3 blows the block slid out. The object fell onto the platform. Rope. 15 meters. The first block of the first pillar is always rope, he noted. Last time it was 2. Not a coincidence. A system. He coiled the rope and began working further. 8 blocks in an hour. Result: rope, boards, hooks, 1 empty. A canteen of water, more rope. A good start. Better than last time. On the 9th block a note fell out. He knew there would be a note. He had seen them last time. He unrolled it without haste. The same handwriting that had been in the 2nd note of the first cycle. You are not the first to end up here. You are not the last. The blocks give what is needed, not what is wanted. Watch your neighbors. But do not trust everyone. At night, do not move. At all. They see movement. He was reading and thinking not about the contents. They were known. He was thinking about who had written it. Someone who knew about the creatures. Someone. Someone who reached this point on their own or also remembered the previous cycle. He removed the note. He did not put it back into his pocket. He put it back into the hole from the block. Let it stay there. The next one will find it. He took from the pocket of his jacket there, where in every jacket, always, there is a breast pocket, a piece of bark, brought from the ground, in advance, and a sharp little stone. He began writing on the bark. Small, but legible. He added what was not in the system of notes. The 3rd entry in the book on the central pillar is correct. They see panic, not movement. Verified. The first useful block is rope. The second or third is boards. The ninth is a note. The watchers do not touch people. Fire at night is dangerous. Fire in the daytime is not. The central pillar is in the northwestern direction. 7 people is the condition for exit. He tucked the bark inside his jacket. Looked at the horizon. Other pillars. On some of them figures, as always in the first days, small, distant, confused. He needed to get to them, but first to build a base. Quickly, in one day what last time had taken 4. He knew the scheme for expanding the platform. Knew how to fasten beams into the body of the pillar. Knew the correct angle of the canopy. His hands remembered. His body remembered. The difference between the first and second cycle is the difference between a blind man in a dark room and a person with a flashlight. The same dark room, but there is light. By the evening of the first day the base stood. Not a canopy, a proper shelter with 3 walls, a wide roof, secured with the correct knots Sanho had taught him in the last cycle. The platform expanded. The zapas rope was laid out. The canteen was full. Inu sat by the wall and looked at the sunset, more precisely, at the gray fading here that was sunset. Thought about the composition of the group. Last time Yuri, Woncheol, the brothers, Jiho, Yonsuk. 7 including him. Did any of them remember too? Possibly those whose symbols were already glowing at the first touch. Woncheol certainly. Yonsuk possibly. Minjun and Sanho, judging by their reaction, too. But they could end up on other pillars. At another point. Far away. Yuri she remembered at the central pillar. That means in this cycle too, she should remember if she gets there again. Or remember earlier. Here, from the first day. He did not know. Could not know. So work with what there is. With whoever turns out to be nearby. The first person appeared on the bridge at dawn on the second day. Inu had not built a bridge to the east, had not had time. The bridge had been built from that side. Someone on the eastern pillar had made a crossing to him rough, from 1 rope and 2 boards, clearly made quickly and without experience. But it held. A person was walking along it. Young, about 22, no older. Tall, thin, in a light jacket clearly not meant for high-altitude wind. He walked along the bridge holding onto the rope with both hands, looking at his feet, moving slowly and carefully. He made it across, stood on the platform, looked at Inu's base at the shelter, the expanded platform, the neatly arranged supplies with the expression with which people look at something whose reality they had not believed in. Have you been here since the first day? He asked. Yes. How did you manage to build so much? I knew what was needed, Inu said. The young man looked at him. Have you been here before? Pause. Inu looked at him with a quick, appraising glance. Open face. Confused, but not panicking. Smart in the eyes, that sharp attentiveness that people who think quickly have. Yes, Inu said. How? A long explanation. I'll tell you in the evening. Inu stood up. What's your name? Lee Chanu. Student. Cha Inu. He held out his hand. What can you do? Chanu thought for a second. Programming. Mathematics. Pause. And rock climbing. I've been doing it for 3 years. Inu looked at him. Rock climbing. Yes. A hobby. Good, Inu said. Very good. Take the pickaxe. I'll show you what to do. Chanu learned quickly. It was visible from the first hour he did not simply repeat. He understood the principle. After the 5th block, he was already working independently, without prompts, choosing the right place to strike. He broke blocks silently, with concentration. For each fallen item, a short glance, an assessment, placement into the supplies. Without unnecessary words. A system? He asked after the 8th block. Yes. Roughly every second or third is useful. Random output or deterministic. Something in between. Depends on the person, Inu said. Different people get different sets. Chanu thought. Personalized output, he said. The algorithm takes the profile into account. Something like that. Who created the algorithm? I don't know. Chanu accepted that without objection, with the look of a person who knows how to work with incomplete data. By noon on the second day, there were 3 of them at the base. The third was a woman who came from the southern direction, by the bridge Inu had built yesterday. Imsora, 30 years old. Architect. She inspected the base the way buildings are inspected, methodically, from the foundation to the roof, without words. Then she said, the platform expansion is held by friction, not by fastening. In a strong wind it will shift. I know, Inu said. It can be fixed. She inspected the beams. 2 additional hooks at a 45-degree angle to the axis. Need metal. The blocks give hooks. I have 3 spare ones. Give them to me. She fixed it in 20 minutes quickly, precisely, with that special professional hand movement that does not require explanation. Now it holds, she said. Thank you, Inu said. Sora looked at him. You knew about the problem, but did not fix it. Why? I did not know the solution. Now you do, she said. For the future. For the future, he agreed. A professional conversation between two people in the sky at a height of 3 kilometers, as if they were discussing a site on a normal construction ground. Inu thought that this was exactly what worked. Not heroism, not panic, just a professional conversation. Doing what you know how to do. Where you ended up. On the third night, the creatures circled for a long time. Inu lay there and counted. More than 40 silhouettes, he lost count after 42. Nearby lay Chanu and Sora, both motionless. At one point, one of the creatures descended very low, almost to the level of the platform. Inu saw it through the gap, not as a silhouette, as a form. Dark, with edges. The sharp edges of the wings like blades, but moving smoothly. What he had taken for eyes in the last cycle were in fact not eyes. More likely receptors. Several points along the front edge of the wing that flickered faintly. They sense, not see. Pressure receptors, Yuri would say. Like the lateral line in sharks, it senses fluctuations in the medium. Air is their medium. Panic creates fluctuations. Even breathing does not. The creature hovered for 20 seconds. Then left. Chanu lay nearby and did not breathe. Only a few seconds after the silhouette disappeared did he exhale slowly. Saw it up close? Inu whispered. Yes. Not scared. Scared, Chanu said just as quietly. But they did not react. So order. Order, Inu confirmed. Sora said nothing. She simply lay there. Inu was not sure whether she was sleeping or not. With such people, sometimes you cannot tell. On the fourth day, a person came whom Inu had not expected. Not from a neighboring pillar. From a far one about 300 meters away, from the western direction, by a chain of 3 bridges that he had clearly built himself. Onchil. Inu saw him while he was still on the last bridge, recognized him by the movement. By the way the old man walked. Unhurriedly, not checking every board, simply walking. A person who knows where he is going and why. He stepped onto the base. Looked around just as last time, with the same expression of recognition. Saw Inu. Stopped. You remember, he said. Not a question, a statement. I remember, Inu said. They looked at each other for a second. First time, Onchil said quietly, that I have met someone remembering from the first day. First time? In the 3 cycles before this, you are the first who remembers from the start. So that is how it works, Inu said. Those who leave through the opening remember from the beginning in the next cycle. Those who stay forget. Exactly. Onchil put down the bag. You stayed last the previous time, jumped with the group. So you remember. And you? I jumped last time too, the old man said. For the first time in 3 cycles. He fell silent. That is why I am here again. 4th time. But now you remember from the first day. Now yes. Inu looked at him. Onchil SSI. So there are 2 of us who remember. 3, the old man said. Who is the 3rd? Onchil nodded somewhere behind Inu's back. Inu turned around. Sora was standing by the wall and looking at both of them. With the expression Inu had already seen once on Yonsuk's face when she had placed her hand on the symbol. A mixture of recognition and surprise. I remembered last night, Sora said, when the creature hovered close. Pause. The memory came all at once as if something switched on. What do you remember? This pillar. This wind. She was looking at the pickaxe. And that I already made these hooks at a 45-degree angle. Last time too. So the improvements accumulate, Chanu said from the wall. He had been listening the whole time, without interrupting. Each cycle the base is better, the knowledge deeper. It is training, Onchil said. You said that last time, Inu said. I did. And I say it again. Because now it is no longer a theory. For on the platform, of the 7 needed, for are already together, with memory of the last cycle. 3 new ones are needed. Inu looked at the horizon, at the distant pillars with figures. Small, lonely, without memory, without knowledge. With a pickaxe in their hands and sky beneath their feet. We go for the rest, he said. The 5th turned out to be a teenager. Inu found him on the southern intermediate pillar, small, not residential. The boy had somehow crossed there from a neighboring one and was sitting in the center, arms wrapped around his knees. About 16, no older. He looked at Inu when he approached across the bridge silently, without shouting, without panic. Simply looked. Have you been here long? Inu asked. 3 days. Eaten. Once. A block gave canned food. Why are you sitting on an intermediate one and not on your own pillar? My pillar started collapsing. The boy spoke evenly, without strain. The upper blocks crumbled. I got scared. You did the right thing by leaving, Inu said. What's your name? Ko Yun. How old are you? 15. What can you do? The boy thought. I draw, he said. And I remember well. See something once, I remember it later. Eidetic memory? Inu clarified. Yes. Mom says photographic. Inu looked at him. Drawing. Maps. Schemes better and more accurate than Jiho could have made last time. You're coming with us, Ko Yun. Where? To the center, Inu said. To the exit. The boy looked at him. There's an exit? There is, Inu said simply. I know where. And for the first time in this cycle, for the first time in 4 days in the sky, the boy exhaled a little. He did not burst into tears, did not fully relax. Simply exhaled. Then let's go, he said. The sixth was found by Sora. While Inu was in the south, Sora went west alone, across Woncheol's bridge, and returned with a woman about 35. Solidly built, short, with short arms, and the look of a person used to working in difficult conditions. Park Jongwei. Doctor. At the base, the first thing she did was examine Yun attentively, professionally. Checked his hands, eyes, asked several questions about sleep and food. Slightly dehydrated, Jongwei said. And he has not slept normally. But he is holding up well. I'm holding up, Yun said, clearly a little embarrassed by the examination. You're holding up well, the doctor said seriously, without babying him. For 15 years old in a situation like this, very well. The boy said nothing, but something changed in his shoulders. They lowered a little. A recognized burden is lighter than an unrecognized one. Inu observed this and thought, last time there was no doctor. This time there is. Each cycle something new, something better. Training. The seventh. On the sixth day, Inu knew that one person was needed. One. And knew roughly where to look. Woncheol had seen movement on the northern pillar, distant but alive. The two of them went, Inu and Chanu. The others stayed at the base. The northern pillar turned out to be difficult. The route through 4 intermediate ones, one of which was unstable, the upper blocks crumbling. They went around it. On the northern pillar there was a woman, about 40, standing at the edge and looking down there, into the clouds, into the abyss. Not suicidally, Inu had learned to tell the difference. She was simply looking, heard footsteps on the bridge, turned around. I was waiting, she said. For us? For anyone. Her name was Nam Ji-yeon. Historian. Historian, Chanu repeated. Yes, she said. Funny, right? Here, where history is only these notes in the blocks. Not funny, Inu said. There, where we are going, there is a book, with notes from different people from different cycles. He looked at her. You will have something to study. Ji-yeon looked at him. Cycles? I'll explain on the way. 7. 7 again, different, but 7. Inu looked at the group before setting out for the central pillar. Woncheol 4th cycle, remembers. Sora 2nd cycle, remembers. Chanu 1st, quick, climber. Yun 15 years old, photographic memory. Jongwei doctor, calm. Ji-yeon historian, asks the right questions. Different. Each time different. But the system gives those who are needed. The blocks give what is needed. And people too. They saw the central pillar on the 3rd day of the crossing. Yun looked at it silently, then took something out of his pocket, a pencil stub and a piece of cloth found in a block. Began drawing. What are you doing? Ji-yeon asked. A map, Yun said. An exact one. With distances, directions, intermediate pillars. He drew quickly, without taking his eyes off the horizon. For the next ones. Inu looked at him. You know about the next ones? You told us on the 1st day about the cycles. Yun did not look up from the drawing. If it repeats, then the next ones need a good map. Not a scheme drawn in the head, an exact one. We had a scheme last time. I will draw a better one. Inu looked at the way the boy worked, confident lines, precise proportions, distance marks. 15 years old. 1st cycle. And already thinking about the next ones. The training works. On the central pillar, everything was the same. Platform, opening, white light. 7 symbols. But there was something new. At the edge of the platform, tied with a rope to a hook in the stone, was the book. The same one, in a leather binding. Already here. Already waiting. Inu took it. Opened it to the last written page. His handwriting. Notes from the last cycle, he himself had written them. So he had left them here before the jump. After his notes, blank pages. He took out the piece of bark with the notes he had been keeping the whole cycle. Looked at Ji-yeon. You are a historian, he said. Yes. Copy this into the book. Neatly, with dates as far as they can be reconstructed. Jion took the bark. Read it. Then raised her eyes. There is only technical material here, she said. Routes, blocks, creatures. What about the people? What about the people? Who was in each cycle? What they understood? How they changed? She looked at him. Technique is important. But history is people, not schemes. Inu thought. Write it, he said. Everything. Technique and people. Yun placed beside it his own map drawn, exact, with scale and legend. Put that in 2. The symbols activated 3, who remembered gave 3 at once. The other 4 one by one, each stepped up and touched. None of the new ones had a flash first cycle for all except Sora. All 7 lit up. One shield stood by the opening. You first this time, Inu said. I know, the old man said. Smiled genuinely, without effort. Not scary at all anymore. Good, good. He jumped the same way as last time. Simply stepped. Then Sora. Then Zhonghui with Yun. The boy held onto her hand not out of fear, simply like that, humanly. Chanu jumped silently, with a little running start, a meter the way people jump into water from the shore. Youthfully. Jion lingered at the edge. I left an unfinished page in the book, she said. Finish it next time. So there will be a next time? For you perhaps, she said. And for you? For me definitely, he said. I am not here for the last time. Jion looked at him. You are not afraid? No, Inu said. Thought. No. There is something to do here. Each time I understand more. Help more. Pause. This is not a punishment. I have known that for a long time. Then until next time, Jion said. Until next time, Inu agreed. She jumped. One remained. Inu stood by the opening, looked into the white light, then took out the pickaxe, placed it beside the book carefully, next to Yun's map. Let it stay there. The next one will find it. Then he looked around. Sky. Pillars in all directions. The creatures circling beyond the invisible boundary of the platform calmly, slowly, as always. He looked at one of them, the one hanging closer than the others. Sharp edges, receptor points along the front edge of the wing. It too either sensed him or was simply nearby. We are coming back, Inu said to it. Aloud. Simply. Every time. The creature did not answer and could not. But the receptor points blinked once. Evenly. 1. Inu did not know what it meant. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. He stepped into the opening.